Meet Irv Rosenfeld. At age 10, he was diagnosed with a rare condition that causes hundreds of painful tumors to grow on his bones all over his body. Irv is also one of 4 surviving patients in the U.S. that for 30 years has been supplied medical marijuana by the government for his medical condition.
So they took me to an orthopedic surgeon, and they noticed these bumps all over my body. That's when the local doctor said, you've got multiple congenital cartilaginous exostosis. Didn't know how to treat it, except for surgeries, and wanted me to go to a major research center. My great uncle being the head of pediatrics at Johns Hopkins, my regular uncle taught pediatrics at Yale. So we contacted them, and the center was Boston Children's Hospital. So I was brought there 2 days later, and there I was told what was going to happen to me. That there's a chance I might not outlive my teenage years, that these tumors could go malignant, but what they were really worried about is hemorrhaging, is tearing a vein over these tumors and a clot breaking off, going to your heart, your brain, your lungs. It could kill you.
Luckily for Irv, despite having countless surgeries in his youth, he survived and was able to go on to college. It was during this time that he first gave in to peer pressure and tried cannabis.
So I smoked, and it did nothing to me. Okay, this isn't doing anything. It's garbage, but I'm accepted. Fine. About the 10th time I did it, I played a game of chess, and I hate chess. I sat for 30 minutes before I lost. It was the first time in 5 years I'd sat for longer than 10 minutes.
Prior to trying cannabis, Irvin couldn't sit or stand for more than 10 minutes at a time due to his condition.
So immediately I thought, in what way did I take all the narcotics to allow me to sit? And I said, wait a minute, I haven't taken a pill in 6 hours. I wonder if there's any medical benefit to this garbage. Okay, so I called my orthopedic surgeon, who'd known me since age 10. I told him what happened. He said, I have no idea. Contact your family. So I contacted them. I said, hey, let's find out if there's any medical benefit of this stuff. We looked and researched, and lo and behold, it had been a medicine in this country from 1860 to 1937. I went, voila, that must be what it's doing for me. I got to research this. So I'd use it for 3 weeks and get miraculously better. My intake of the heavy narcotics would decrease by 50, 60, 70%. And I was just much better spirited, and I felt better. And then I'd stop using it just to make sure it wasn't the warm climate of Miami making me feel better. And I'd go downhill. I did this 3 times until I was convinced that it was that damn illegal drug that was doing it for me. So I called the orthopedic surgeon and said, Doc, I'm going to drop out of college. I'm going to come back to Virginia. I'm going to write up my own scientific project, and I want you to be the researcher, and I'm going to be the patient.
Around the same time he spoke to his doctor, Irv also found out that the U.S. government had and still has a farm at the University of Mississippi where they grow marijuana for medical and pharmaceutical purposes, despite their Schedule I labeling.
My doctor can give me morphine, but he can't give me marijuana, and this works best for me. So I went back to Virginia. I put my protocol together and got the doctor to sign it, and then for 5 years, FDA stonewalled me.
Despite being turned down by the United States Food and Drug Administration, Irv had learned of another patient, Bob Randall, who had become the first person to receive medical marijuana from the federal government for his personal use. Luckily for Irvin, he got a chance meeting with Bob Randall.
I said, Bob, my name's Irv Rosenfeld, and I've been trying to take on the federal government for over 5 years. And I showed him my research project. He looked at it. He said, you're serious, aren't you? I go, yeah. He said, the government had no intentions of ever giving it to anybody else. I said, they had no intentions of giving it to you either, but you got it.
Meanwhile, Irvin got the University of Virginia's legal department and his congressman to represent him and his protocol to gain legal access to medical marijuana.
I lobbied, got the law passed, got the governor to sign it in 1979. Got my doctor to write a prescription. I went to the pharmacist, handed it to them. I said, now fill it. And of course they couldn't. So now I'd complied with the Virginia law. I had a prescription. I went to a pharmacist. So now where you fill it is a gray area. But I felt very comfortable now. Now I had legalization in Virginia as far as I was concerned. Well, meanwhile, University of Virginia, taking my case, gave them 3 years, gave FDA 3 years to contemplate what they wanted to do. Finally, University of Virginia said, we're going to sue you.
It was then, upon being threatened by the University of Virginia's law department, that finally, in October of 1982, the FDA granted Irvin a hearing. He would have 15 minutes to convince a panel of 19 doctors on why he should be given legal access to medical marijuana.
So I said everything that I thought was important. And one of the things I said is my doctor and I had studied for the last 10 years that when I had cannabis and I took Dilaudid, which is synthetic morphine, it enhanced the effects of the Dilaudid to where I didn't have to use as much. My intake was cut by 50, 60, 70%. But when I didn't have cannabis, my intake went sky high, you know? And so, because you couldn't get it sometimes, you couldn't find it. So now I've finished speaking, and the chairman said, are there any questions from the audience? Any questions? Well, a guy in a white coat raised his hand, stood up, said, I really don't have a question, I have a statement. I'm a visiting oncologist from Venezuela. I'm here studying pain treatment for cancer. And what I've discovered is the best pain treatment you have is Dilaudid, which is what we have. And if this patient and a doctor have studied it for 10 years, off and on, using cannabis, it needs to be studied with a continuous supply. And sat down. Well, you could see the faces on the panel. It's like, oh, So I said, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. He said, your presentation was very convincing and that you will become the second person in the country.
Irvin's been able to use federally supplied medical marijuana for the past 30 years. So you might be wondering, what's his life like now?
It might be hard to see here, but here's a bone tumor right here. They grow outwardly from the long bones into the muscles and the veins, stretching the muscles and the veins, making it very painful. So what cannabis does for me is it relaxes the muscles going over the tumors. So it's more of a muscle relaxant that relaxes the muscles, thereby easing the muscle tension and the pain. So really it serves for me as more of a muscle relaxant. There's a sac of fluid over every tumor called a bursar. That bursar is trying to protect the muscle and the vein from the tumor. Well, the more that's inflamed, the higher chance of malignancy. So cannabis serves as an anti-inflammatory. It keeps the bursar from being inflamed, okay? Now, these tumors I have should be growing, okay? I have a disorder, second disorder called a variant of the syndrome, pseudo-hypoparathyroidism, which means these tumors can develop new ones at any age, and existing ones can grow at any time. Now, I'll be 60 years old next month. I've not had a tumor grow since I was 21. Now, why is that? Doctors don't know. Maybe it's the cannabis.